the Spirit Sessions podcast. I'm your guide, Katie Silcox, bringing you your weekly self-love soundbite. Join us, where I'll help you find your true spiritual home, where every single aspect of you is holy ground, holy ground, holy ground, holy ground.
This is a Spirit Session podcast with Katie Silcox. Venga chicos, empezamos.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hi everyone, Katie here. This podcast is intended to inspire you, educate you, and most importantly, support you on your journey towards knowing who you really are, that inner self, that inner teacher. I am not a psychologist or a medical doctor and do not offer professional health or medical advice on this podcast. If you are suffering from any kind of psychological or medical issue, please do the right thing and seek help from your qualified health professional. Hey everybody, it's your Ayurveda Gal Friday here, Katie Silcox, coming to you with a solo cast. It's been a minute since I've just sat down and sat down in the springtime and just spoke to you all from my heart. I hope that this finds you enjoying the spring, and whether you're listening to this in the car or maybe you're hiding out in your in-laws' basement wondering what you've done with your life. Or maybe you're taking a walk with your dog, questioning, right? Life. Wherever this finds you, I hope it finds you, I was going to say well, but I mean, sometimes we have to not feel well, to kind of open into the next level. So hi, I'm back. It is spring in Virginia. The green is popping off. It's the most beautiful baby green. We were in the pink phase, and yesterday was Easter, and I got the most hilarious text from my mom. And my mom is a regular listener, shout out Vera, friend of the pod, so she will hear this. So, I mean this with all the love in my heart, but I got the best text ever on Easter Sunday from my mom, and she told me that she had gone to a special sunrise Easter service, and that she found out something incredible, that our Druidic Celtic ancestors, that the symbol of the cross with the circle around it from the Celtic tradition was representative of the circle of life, of the earth, and that she was just amazed at this pagan goddess culture that had somehow morphed into evolutionarily a meme into Christianity, and it was this revelation. And I get this text and it was did you know that Easter eggs and bunnies are the symbol of female fertility? And I was just yeah, I did know that, mama. Been studying this for 25 years now. And I'm bringing that up, A, because it was funny, and B, because I think you will resonate, and it's related to the topic of today. And that is, you cannot be your mama's guru, and you cannot be your family's minister, and you cannot be your cousin's therapist. Our family is often, especially our parents and brothers and sisters, really we can be their friend and their companion on this walk, but our nuclear family is often the last ones that will be able to pick up on what you're putting down. And it's not oh, we're good, they're bad. We are them, right? We also have a hard time seeing our parents or seeing our family members as the evolutionary experience and creature that they are. And our mom will always see us forever as this little bouncing baby on her knee, cleaning up your vomit and dealing with your potty mouth when you were a teenage girl, And so I love that my mom had this goddess Easter experience and came to me really excited about it. And what I want to talk about today is a question that my staff informed me that we get all the time from listeners and from folks writing in asking about the Shakti School, and we get this all the time, the question, okay, my loved ones don't understand what I'm doing. Ayurveda isn't accepted in my community yet, and people think I'm weird because I want to go to bed at 9:30. And the question is, how do you deal with feeling like an outsider and like no one understands you? Girl, listen up. I got you. I get you. I have felt that way when I was younger, especially. I really felt like I was the weird, witchy woo of my whole family. And, now my sister's like more woo than I am. And my mom is like doing Easter goddess worship on Sunday morning. So I just want to say, like, your family is also in an evolution. And it's not hierarchical. It's not like, oh, well, you're further along, because spirituality isn't necessarily linear like that. But what can be helpful is, while we're holding this bigger perspective of our infinite connectivity and like us not being special, I do think it can be helpful to understand that some of us are a little bit further along on the path of spiritual development. It's the same with intellectual development or emotional maturity. It's not to say others are bad or put them down. It's just there is a helpful way that thinking in a linear manner can serve us. And I remember one of my teachers being like, I was talking about someone and she was like, well, you might just be a little older than her. And I was like, no, I'm younger. And she's like, well, you might be a little older, lifetimes wise. And just as we wouldn't look at a 5-year-old and be like, you suck, you're only 5, like, get with the program. And in some ways we envy the 5-year-olds, right? With their endless energy and curiosity. We also don't want to do that with people that are just a little bit less inclined to step outside of mainstream culture and, just homogenous mainstream culture. And so my loved ones don't understand what I'm doing. How do I deal with this? They think I'm weird. I feel like an outsider. So the first thing is that, like, on a spiritual level, it could be helpful to, like, really look at, there's so much good content emotionally and energetically in that question and in that statement. The first thing that we need to do is what we always need to do whenever anything happens, and that is open to what is happening, open to the experience without conditions, open to the feeling without wanting it to be different. So really get curious and open without making it your new identity. What does it feel like to be left out? What does it feel like to be the weirdo? What does it feel like to be the black sheep, the outsider? Like, I'm kind of feeling it right now. It's like, wow, that kind of sucks, right? Our mammalian reptilian ancestry, especially as it evolved from the reptile cold-blooded into the warm-blooded, right? We have evolved into tribes. The last thing you want to have happen in the wild is to be left out, is to be the weird one, is to be the black sheep or the outsider. In our ancestral evolution, not being a part of the pack could have meant death. And so really it's a deeper question of this feeling of belonging. But what we're doing on the spiritual path is we're waking up to the ways in which that ancient brain cannot be our only guidepost for how well we're doing on the spiritual path. So the first thing is to really open to feeling that feeling of being different. The funny part about doing that, if you could maybe even pause this podcast and do that and feel that. And then once you do that, the irony of this way of practicing is that if we can open to what we're experiencing without condition fully, making room around it without diving so deeply in that we get lost in it, the irony is that that unconditional acceptance of our experience leads to this deep sense of something else. And I don't want to put too much, verbiage around it just because it's your experience. But in my experience, it's like love, it's like compassion, and it's this feeling of deep belonging to myself. And that feeling of belonging allows me to feel connected to nature, to other people, to everyone and everything. And then I'm less dependent upon like that specific person to make me feel like I belong. So that's like a big, what I call eagle eye vision around all this. Like, let's explore the part of you that wants to feel like you need to fit in. And as the great teacher of all things authentic, Brene Brown says that fitting in is actually the enemy of belonging. So that's like the big eagle eye vision. Okay, so now let's get down to some practical things around this. You want to share Ayurveda with your family, your friends, your community, your clients. And whether you're sharing it with your mom or your clients, I think that these bullet points I've written up are really helpful no matter what, whether we're talking about a friend, a family, or like a work relationship or a client relationship. And one is that I learned this very early on by making the mistake of trying to, do everything in the ancient way, perfectly, traditionally, using all the Sanskrit and being very, very smart about it, right? People don't need that. That's like giving someone hard to digest food. You have to figure out what people are ready to digest, and we want to make it warm soup with spice, right? Anybody can digest warm soup. So start your explanation around Ayurveda or what you're interested in, whether it be Ayurveda or anything else that you might feel is kind of weird or out there or different than mainstream culture, by starting with what we start in level 1 and level 2 with, and that's like this eagle-eyed vision, which is something all humans can share. Start with your shared values, right? Instead of diving straight into Sanskrit or the doshas and confusing the heck out of everybody, or the 5 elements, or, it really is a travesty in the Ayurveda world, the way we start with all of these complex rules and limitations, and then we wonder why people aren't drawn to it, right? What about the deeper meaning and the shared goals that you have as a family or as a community, which is peace, happiness, well-being, living a balanced life? Explaining how, Ayurveda is really about our humanity and about learning how to live in harmony with ourselves. And then in turn, taking in foods and social media and relationships and putting things on our skin that bring more harmony. Like if I were going to start, that's where I would start. Like, oh, it's just about harmony. It's about harmony. It's about harmony. It's about balance. It's about harmonizing. And it's about really being who you really are. And every human being on the planet knows that. They can touch into that. Like, oh, this is about you, like, being and feeling that you're connected to who you really are, not these masks that we wear. In other words, keep it simple, keep it relatable, avoid all the Ayurveda jargon and terminology. And it's not that those things are bad. I love Sanskrit, and some of you are in our school or have been in our school, or hopefully one day you'll come. But like the Sanskrit is so fun because you get to like understand the mind of the Indian mind on collective. But you don't need to start with that. In fact, the Charaka Samhita says that the Ayurveda must be presented to the people in the time and the place in which it's being presented, meaning even the thousands of years ago, these ancient texts advised us, let the Ayurveda evolve to the time, place, and people. And so that really was why I wrote Healthy, Happy, Sexy. Like, how can we make this accessible? And it's your job to make it even more accessible. Explain the core ideas in an everyday language that anyone could get. Instead of talking about doshas, talk about how, like, human beings are all different. We all have different body types and blood types, and we all need to kind of have different remedies because of that. And that really different foods or activities can just make you feel better and more relaxed or more energetic. Everybody can understand that. I also think about, rather than like diving into the philosophy, you can just talk about your personal experience with Ayurveda and how it's helped you. So for example, hey, I started studying this Eastern philosophy and I started eating more fat and more cooked foods, and I started actually shifting my chronology of like the rhythm of when I ate more towards like what the sun does in the sky. We talked about that in the last podcast, right? Weight balancing. Yeah, I started eating my heaviest meal at like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the summer, and maybe like 11, 12 o'clock in the winter. And then I would just have like dinner as a supplement. Hey, did you know that the word supper comes from supplement? And your family can all understand exactly what I just said, because every human being understands the sun. They understand when the sun's in the sky. A 5-year-old understands that. And now all of a sudden, I'm speaking the language of reality. I'm speaking the language of Mother Nature. And if you speak the language of Mother Nature, you don't need Sanskrit, you don't need philosophy, you don't need complex theory, you just need the truth. And everybody can get that. Personal stories are often much more impactful and interesting than abstract philosophy. I'm laughing because, I'm a total nerd, and I know probably many of you are too, and like you want to nerd out, but it's like you are special. I do want to say that. Like, no one's more special than anyone else. We're all special snowflakes, but like if you're drawn to studying something that expands your mind, I'll put it that way, you are different. Most people want to stay the same. So like, this makes tears come to my eyes. I had this teacher and I said, I just feel like such a weirdo. And he said, you need to let go of any hope that you're ever not going to be a weirdo. Hallelujah, I'm a weirdo. Right? That's what makes you interested in growing and expanding your consciousness. What's the alternative? You stay the same and you stay right on the wheel of repetition that we've been on for a long time. Also, I would just say don't overwhelm anybody with information and just sounds so cheesy, but like be the change and just put the oils on your skin, do the practices, eat differently, meditate, go to bed at 9:30. And guess what? You know what? Nobody's going to think you're a weirdo if you go to bed at 9:30 when you're in your 40s. So if someone asks that question is in your 20s or 30s, just wait. All your friends that are partying it up in their 40s, it's going to be a hot mess. Just be so glad that you got it early. Introduce things gradually and gently, but more importantly, don't tell anybody too much about what you're doing. Just be it. Just rock out, just radiate, just show up, just be. And then guess what's going to happen? Your family, your friends are going to be like, what are you doing? You look great. You seem great. You seem peaceful. You seem energized. You seem happy. You seem sad sometimes, but you're feeling it finally. Oh, wow. You seem angry. Oh my God, we don't know that you, but good. You're like speaking or being who you really are. And what are you doing? And I have a friend, and she did Ayurveda school with me probably 6 years ago. And same as whoever wrote us this question. She's like, Katie, Ayurveda school's ruined me because now, like, I want to go to bed early. I want to eat healthy. I don't want to, like, do drugs or drink. I don't want to do that anymore. And now, like, a lot of the people that maybe I was, like, hanging out with all the time, it's different now. Like, you've messed me up. And I'm like, yeah, but you can go back to that, right? You can go back to it right now, tomorrow. But the thing is, you can't. You can't go back. You really can't. Once you've tasted health and harmony, you may trip up or you may go back to your old ways for a minute, but you can never forget how good it feels to be in harmony with your soul. So do that, be that. In fact, if you're really struggling with this, don't talk about Ayurveda at all, right? Just be the thing. But then some of you want to be Ayurveda health coaches. And what I tell people is like, focus on the practical, really highlight the tangible benefits, tell people what they're going to get, what they're going to get out of doing good, harmonious life. Talk about gut health, talk about calming techniques for stress management. And later you can bring in these deeper concepts of the doshas or, and I honestly don't do a lot of one-on-one Ayurveda consultations these days, but if I did, I promise you, or even if I was just sharing this with my family, I wouldn't talk about the doshas. I would talk about chewing our food. I would talk about sitting in quiet. I would talk about the nervous system. Like people don't need complex theory. They need to chew their food to an even consistency. They need to eat their bigger meal in the middle of the day. They need to have 4 hours before they go to bed where they're not eating. These are the miraculous changes that help people's lives. They don't need philosophy unless they do. And then rock their world, like tell them all about it because they've asked. And then, share things with people that show interest or ask, as I said. And another amazing thing you can do is just be of service. So rather than blah, 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 talking about Ayurveda so much, what if you just like cooked an Ayurveda inspired meal? Cook it for your family. And by the way, it doesn't mean that it has to be Indian food. In fact, I would say cook a meal from your ancestry. And that'll be much more impactful. Another thing is just to deeply respect everyone's journey, respect others' religious beliefs and practices. Your family may have different religious or philosophical beliefs than you, and that's okay. And so we really want to avoid Ayurveda fundamentalism, avoid being judgmental or pushy. Remember, our goal is to serve, and our goal is to be the change rather than force a belief system. And lastly, just like first and lastly, as it goes, lead by example. Just the most powerful way you can influence people, and there's like a lot of research around this now, around the subconscious mind. Like if your own room is a mess, and your own digestion's a mess, and your diet's a mess, and your relationships are a mess, and then you're like on your Ayurveda soapbox, like people can feel it. They can feel there's discord, there's disharmony between what you're talking and preaching and what you're living. And so just like get your house in order, like clean out your garage and your basement and like clean out your closet and get the dust off your house. And like, I mean that literally. And it's the same. It's like, you don't have to be perfect. Of course. Hello. Y'all know I'm not a perfect person by any stretch of the imagination, but I just know for me in that evolution, it's like the more that I'm actually doing the practices and being the practices, the more that I think people can feel it when I show up, when I talk, and when I offer, and when I share. And then lastly, I said it in the beginning, I want to say it again. I've dealt with this so much in my life, and I just really want to encourage you. If you are someone that asks this question or resonate with this question of feeling like a weird, woo-woo, witchy weirdo, and that's some language, right? You could feel like a black sheep in a million different ways, but the point is that you feel like you don't fit in, that you don't belong, and maybe even you're rejected. That's a good one. Spend some time investigating and getting curious about that feeling without thinking that that's who you are. Let that really be okay. And by letting that be okay, I can promise you this whole new world of compassion and self-esteem and dignity will flood into your zone. Feeling like a weirdo and like rejected has been one of the greatest spiritual practices in my life. It's one that I'm working with even as we speak. It's a lifelong task, but I think that the question invites us into like a deeper space, and I appreciate those of you that ask it for giving me this opportunity to contemplate it and deeply reflect and practice on it. All right, beautiful people, have a great spring. A big special thanks to Kevin Carlisle of Goodbye Gemini, who wrote this beautiful podcast music, and to DJ Juan Pablo Jimenez in southern Spain for mixing it and making it magic.